Welcome to this episode of Safe Home Podcast for struggling teens and their families finding their healing path. I'm Beth Syverson, a mom of an 18-year-old son, Joey, who's been dealing with addiction and mental health issues for several years. I'm walking beside him as he struggles with his recovery while I work on my own personal growth and healing. Now, our safe home has 4 pillars: addiction, mental health, adoption, and diversity. And today we're going to be leaning on the diversity pillar. Today's guest is Carolyn Balagot, an advocate for neurodiverse people. In her family, she, her husband, and her 3 kids are all neurodiverse in one way or another, primarily with ADHD or Autism Spectrum Disorder. She's worked at her children's school as a 504 case carrier, advocating for students' needs. Her kids all went to school at Orange County School of the Arts, where I used to teach and which I highly respect and admire. Now, especially in an art school, all kinds of diversity are usually celebrated, including neurodiversity. Carolyn will talk to us about her family's challenges and triumphs and help us know how better to advocate for our neurodivergent loved ones or community members. So welcome to Safe Home, Carolyn. Glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I loved working at OSHA. I worked there, 20 years ago now, but I always thought, God, I wish I could have gone to this school instead of teaching here.
Yes, absolutely.
All of the arty, quirky kids are all in one place and no one feels weird because they're all a little weird, right? So
absolutely. Absolutely.
It was a great place even back then. I'm sure it's even better now, just warm and welcoming and diverse and unique. And I loved it.
Yes.
So why don't you just tell us about you and your family? Where are you in the world? How old are your kids? What do you guys like to do? Stuff like that.
Okay. So I am a native of my hometown, Cypress, California, still live here.
Wow.
My husband and I have been married for over 25 years, and we have 3 kids who are now 17, 21, and 23.
Okay. Almost done cooking them all. Just a little bit longer on the one.
Yeah. They're all still here though.
They're cooked and still at home, which is very common.
Well, and the pandemic really just was right at a time when they should have been stretching out more. And actually the autism, that was a big factor in how my family dealt with the pandemic and the sheltering at home and trying to stay separate. It made a huge impact.
Yeah. So it kind of changed your kids' trajectory, it sounds like.
Yes, big time.
That is really a global trauma that we're all still working through. It's been really, really tough.
Yes.
Well, tell us who has what in your family.
Right.
What have you got going on?
Well, officially diagnosed, the first one was my youngest, who is now 17, was 8 when he was diagnosed. I actually had him assessed at about 1.5 because he didn't have any true words.
Okay.
He babbled and didn't say much. Mm-hmm. And I took him to one person to be evaluated. And the evaluator said, I don't think it's speech. I think it's a neurological issue.
Oh.
And I didn't know that much. What I knew about autism was pretty much what the general thing that most people know, except that I had worked at a camp for adults and kids with developmental challenges. And this camp was a respite camp.
Okay.
So these were people with high needs. Mm-hmm. And so it was like a week to give the families a break.
Yeah.
And their caregivers got a break and they got to come into this fun camp.
Sure.
So those were people with high needs. And so that's kind of what was my picture of what that was when he said it was neurological.
Oh, that's what you thought your child would be like.
I was like, well, he understands what you're saying. I can tell he understands what you're saying. He's just ignoring you because he doesn't want to do what you're telling him to do. So we got a different assessment, and Brendan started speech at 1.5 and progressed like super fast.
Oh, okay.
At almost 2 years, said mama about a month before his 2nd birthday, and then just super progressed after that. Just took off with the speech.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So it was just, I guess, delayed. And he has some articulation issues with the R's and stuff that's pretty common. But yeah, so he started speech, and then it was hard to keep up with the speech with the way the system is. If you're under 3, you go through regional center.
Oh, right.
And then at 3 years old, you have to do it something different. So many hoops to jump through. And so he was talking, so we didn't do speech for a few years. Preschool was a lot of behavior discussions. And then he went to Preppy K, where they had a wonderful principal and a wonderful teacher that year who were super supportive. And then first grade, we had to go to a different school. That principal was not as supportive, although the teacher was awesome. And we continued speech there.
Okay.
But then the kindergarten teacher loved to just work with Brendan. Brendan is like the biggest love.
Okay.
His heart on his sleeve, just loves everybody.
Aww.
Beautiful, happy, light presence that he has. And the teacher just loved him. So things ended up being okay. I almost pulled him halfway through, but the teacher said, I understand why you feel that way, but if he leaves, I'll be heartbroken. I just love him so much. So we stayed another semester, and Brendan wanted to go back for first grade. And about halfway through that first semester, I ended up pulling him out for homeschooling because the teacher just was not trying any different strategies. It was the whole behavior chart and moving your clip up and down the colors. And every day was the whole Brendan did this, Brendan did that, the whole list of stuff.
Getting in trouble all the time. Oh, dang it.
Yep. And, you know, at this point, I know my kid.
Yeah.
My kid just wants to be everybody's friend.
Yeah.
This is not doesn't try to get in trouble. He would really rather not. Thank you very much. So we exited out of speech because you have to when you leave the school. And we did homeschooling for the rest of first grade, all the way up until he started OSHA.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. So all elementary school. He started in 7th grade at OSHA?
Yes, 7th grade.
Okay.
Yep. And so at 8 years old, when we were homeschooling, my oldest had a lot of definitely ADHD. My oldest seemed very typical ADHD, what you would think of in a kid can't sit still. Like, and then all of a sudden, the summer between kindergarten and first grade, he could settle and he could sit still and pay attention. So I was kind of waiting for that to happen for Brendan, and it wasn't happening.
Okay.
So I took him again to be assessed at 8 years old, where they told me he's slightly on the spectrum.
Okay.
They had told me slightly on the spectrum. And I was like, okay. In the meanwhile, all the way there, my kid is in the back, scripting in the back of the van, just full-on conversations.
What does that mean, scripting?
It's sort of practicing conversations. So both my oldest and my youngest repeated things from TV shows and movies. A lot. Yes. And so to this day, my oldest can just rattle out entire dialogues and everything.
Okay. Yes.
So things were going okay. Brendan still had impulse control issues, and I just really didn't understand him. This is my third kid, and the other two had kind of gone along the same path as far as how we dealt with conflicts and other things, but it was different. So on Brendan's 11th birthday, he had a huge meltdown and hadn't been sleeping. So I took him back in again, and that was a different doctor. I don't know who told you slightly on the spectrum. This kid is smack dab middle in the spectrum.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back on that whole spectrum discussion. I like to look at it, and there's new thoughts on how to express that. You know, we don't labels like high functioning or low functioning. They're really misnomers. It's way too broad of terms, low functioning and high functioning. And they have such an ugly picture in your mind when you say them.
Yeah.
And it's just like very vague and does not convey the person accurately.
So how are people in the autism community, how would they rather describe different characteristics of that person's autism? What's the better way to do it?
Well, it's really more of a picture. I wish I had sent you this picture of the way it's trying to be described. There's this cartoon of two different penguins, and one of them has colors splotchy all around. The other one has more colors full in. And instead of being like a rainbow of this side is low and this side is high, instead of like the bow meter, it's just different colors, different mixing of colors. And the very common phrase is, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism.
Yeah. I can put that picture in the notes, and if you find it, send me the link and I'll put the picture in the notes. That sounds really useful.
Yes, it is. Because like I said, it's complicated. And I think most people they're embracing autistic instead of the person first language, which used to be what was thought is the most respectful. But you're not a person with autism. It's not like you can take the autism out of who you are. So you are autistic.
Yeah, I understand that's a recent shift.
Yes.
In the autism world, from what my perspective of it is, I follow a lot of neurodivergent people. And I also teach neurodivergent people at Coastline College, where I teach intellectually disabled people, many of whom are autistic. But my perception is that autistic is not a dirty word. It's not
Right.
a negative word at all. It's just a different way of approaching the world. Is that your perception as well? How things are changing?
Yes, absolutely. It's not a bad word. It is just a different way that your brain works.
Yeah.
And thank God for people whose brains work differently.
Yes. I wonder how many artists and performers and writers and poets through history might have been labeled autistic at the, if that had existed at the time. How many gifts have autistic people brought us in the world?
A lot of good stuff.
So much.
If you look back on hearing about Mozart and how their behaviors were kind of odd and eccentric, that definitely goes along with that. So I truly believe that autistic people are just a brilliant gift to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's time the world starts giving back to them. The last 20 years has been such a push to make neurodivergent people neurotypical.
Right.
This is how you behave. You should be neurotypical.
Yeah. You guys changed this way. Yeah.
And yes, be more like this. And the world is built for neurotypical people. The sights, the sounds, the pace, all of it is built that way. And my dream is that we can meet halfway.
Yeah.
Like I said, autistic people have given so many gifts to the world. And I think it would just be fair if we could meet each other halfway.
Yeah.
We're not asking everybody to turn off all the lights and turn down all the sound. Just be considerate and open to things. There's just some issues where it's like, well, I'm autistic, I process things slower. So if I'm going to a job interview, it would be really helpful for me to have the questions ahead of time. And these are things that are still extremely stigmatized.
Yes.
Like you shouldn't have special consideration. And it's the same way with accommodations in school.
Yeah.
They're stigmatized. Why do they get that? Why do they get special treatment?
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, I don't know. Why does the person whose legs don't work use a wheelchair?
Yeah. Why do they get the elevator pass?
Yeah. Why don't they have to walk up the stairs?
Yeah. Same thing.
It's the same thing.
And so that's what your job was, right? At 504.
Yes.
For people that don't know what a 504 is, can you explain that?
Okay. 504 is one of the categories that a student can get for some accommodations. There's IEP, which is the individual education plan, which is a little higher. That has more to do with you might have to change some of the curriculum. And where 504 is just accommodations and none of the teaching is changed. It's just maybe you can type because you don't have good hand-eye coordination. Or if you have dyscalculia, you need to use a calculator because the numbers don't mean the same thing in your brain as they do in other people's brain. So 504 is even for if you're diabetic.
Okay.
Gives you the chance to take breaks and eat. Yeah. If your blood sugar's low, maybe we can't take a test right now. We have to wait until the blood sugar gets more regulated. So yeah, it's just things like extra time on tests, a quieter setting to take a test, and maybe extra time to turn your homework in. Yeah. Whereas an IEP would be a differentiation in the actual teaching end.
Okay. We were looking into getting Joey a 504, but then he kind of crashed out of school completely. But I think if I would have started that process a little sooner, that might have helped him because he had a lot of anxiety. I know it's not a neurodivergence necessarily, but
it is. It is.
It is?
Absolutely. Oh. Anxiety. Absolutely. It's a diagnosis.
Oh, okay.
And you don't actually have to have a diagnosis to get a 504.
Oh, okay.
But if you do, anxiety is definitely up there, and why we have students who need to test in a separate environment.
See, that's what he gets so much test anxiety. And then he sees kids walking up to the desk, turning the thing in. And he's like,
Exactly it. That's exactly it. We have plenty of students who go to our test center at OSHA because of that, because of, oh, wait, I'm not done. Why are they done already?
Yeah. Then you can't concentrate.
Yeah. And you're just like stare off into space and wait, there goes 10 minutes where, oh, shoot, you know?
Yeah.
So actually anxiety, depression, all those things, if it affects your schoolwork.
So since you've worked on the other side of those 504s, were you representing the school or the parents or both?
Both.
Okay.
So kind of the middleman.
Okay. So do you recommend that parents, if their child is struggling, is that something they should look into getting at their school?
Definitely.
Sooner than later. Yeah. If there's a little trouble, start looking at getting a 504.
Absolutely. And, I hesitated personally, and this is very common, but parents just need to know their rights. There's a fantastic website called understood.org, has the answer to everything, 504, IEPs, all that stuff. Understood.org has and it's so well laid out, very simply. It's an amazing website.
Oh, thank you. I'll put that in the notes.
Like I told you, my oldest had trouble sitting still. So kindergarten, there was always behavior.
Okay.
And then first grade, they got better. But because we went to a Catholic school and I knew some of the teachers really well, I had heard about this Hume file that was going with my kid. And how by first grade, there was already a label.
What's a what file?
Cumulative file.
Oh, cumulative file. Oh, that follows you.
Yeah, Cume file. And my kid was already labeled.
Oh, shoot. What was he labeled as?
All of the things he had gotten in trouble for, So like there's this list of all the things he had done wrong. And so I was gun shy. For sure, to pursue that. And with my oldest, when I homeschooled him as well, I actually pulled him out of school after second grade.
Okay.
And when he was going into third, my second was going into first, and my youngest was 2, I started homeschooling.
Oh, Lordy. Oh, goodness.
All my kids. I had talked to the homeschool because we were with this program called CHEP, which is through the Orange County Department of Ed. We had kind of an umbrella teacher. And I kept saying, I think there's something going on with my oldest. There's some issues. Oh, he's doing fine. Oh, he's doing fine.
Shoot.
So yes, definitely should have had that one assessed.
Okay. And can you get a 504 from homeschooling, or you don't even need one when you're homeschooling?
You don't really need one when you're homeschooling.
You can accommodate whatever.
You can accommodate. Absolutely.
So it's when you're in a class situation.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's really good to know.
Yeah, but I would definitely, and like understood.org, and nowadays it's not as stigmatized. Public schools have got to be way more careful.
Yeah. Because
of FERPA, it's Protection Act, that you have to protect the students' identities and all the info.
Oh, okay.
So it's a federal law. So, and it's not kind of a special class as much anymore.
Okay.
It's accommodations. And if they really need significant help on a subject, they may get pulled out for an hour for just like special math tutoring or reading help. But it's so much more inclusive now than it used to be.
Yeah.
So I know our generation, special education means something different.
Yeah.
When we were in school.
Yeah. Oh, for us, every kid that had any sort of disability was pulled out all day. You didn't ever see them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they had a little star next to their name. I remember that in the roll book. But especially for a 504, that's just a couple of little tweaks that would just make the schooling feel better, less anxious, less overwhelming.
And was that pretty easy to get kids' needs accommodated at OSHA, or did you have to fight?
It depends.
On each parent and each situation, I'm sure.
It depends on each situation. Some things were not a problem. Some things which shouldn't have been a problem sometimes were. So it's just an ableist issue. Ableism is just where you see the world and situations from a neurotypical point of view.
Yeah.
You just need to work harder.
Yeah.
You just need to try harder. You just need to get organized. Things like that. There was a situation where a student wanted to wear sunglasses. Oh, they don't need to, without even questioning why. What would that do for them? Why do they need this? Well, they don't need that.
Oh,
not even a question.
And that doesn't even hurt anybody else at all.
Just dismissed it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's from the ableist point of view that I think so many people don't even know that they have.
Because we're just swimming in the water. We don't even know.
Right. Yeah, you from our own point of view.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to dig into when you're looking into neurodiversity, and everybody's spectrum is varied and it presents so many different ways. And I know one of the big things for autistic people are sensory issues, and those fluorescent lights are a huge problem with a lot of autistic people.
Yeah, it's distracting because they can hear them. Is that what it is?
You can hear it, and it affects their eyes differently too.
So how do you accommodate for that? Do you ask that they get new lights, or they turn them half off or something like that?
I have not seen one in junior high or high school.
Oh, they don't have them at your schools?
No, I haven't seen anybody accommodate for that, honestly.
Oh, they ask for it, but
that's nuts.
Shoot.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. And I don't see why sunglasses would be a problem.
Yeah, maybe that would help.
I think that sounds like a great solve.
Mm-hmm.
They have these wonderful filters. You can buy them on Amazon.
Oh.
You might have seen them like at your dentist office. There's like clouds or a rainbow that goes over it.
Yeah.
And it filters out that part of the fluorescent light that's irritating.
Well, that seems like a small thing that we could do to help people out. But
right?
Yeah, it seems like neurotypical people don't like to be inconvenienced or affected by somebody else's disability, which is kind of a problem because it creates this us versus them kind of situation. But if we can see all of our different people as necessary for our whole system to work properly and valuable, let's try to, make it work for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we have a whole thing in our society about different. Being different at all is for some people just unacceptable.
Yeah.
And why should I have to?
Yeah. Why should I have to change something?
It's very egocentric, our society. What about me? And I have the right and all that stuff. That's just, if we were more thoughtful of each other, it would be a better world.
Yeah. Okay. So your youngest son and your oldest son, is he autistic too?
Yes. Diagnosed last year.
Oh, later. Okay.
At 22.
Okay. And did the diagnosis help him or did it give him anything new resources wise or?
Well, right now, I think it was just the relief of there's a name for why so many things have been a struggle. Why?
Oh, okay.
The sensitivities and other things, that there's a name and a reason for it. There's definitely a resistance to trying new strategies. I'm trying to work on that.
Okay.
We'll see. I'm hoping that there will be some, but right now we're just I'm embracing who I am and taking off the mask.
Yeah.
Just living in myself and my own body for a while and feeling that and stop trying to mask. And
I understand that the masking is exhausting.
Yeah. Exhausting.
Trying to be quote unquote normal, trying to blend in with neurotypical people. It's exhausting for autistic people.
Yes. My oldest and youngest, both from OSHA, just pass out in the car on the way home.
Oh, I bet.
It just exhausted. My middle one, not so much.
Okay. So they don't have autism, your middle one?
We actually are starting to believe probably does.
Oh, okay. Looks different from everybody else, but.
Yes. And I'm in the process of looking into whether I am autistic.
Oh, yourself? Okay.
Yep. So my dad, I'm almost 100% sure was autistic.
Okay. And it is genetic, so it passes down.
It is genetic, but I'm really good with people. I'm good with the peopling. I can do that. And I can read social cues and I can do all those things that supposedly people on the spectrum have a hard time with. And a new theory somebody talked about on TikTok was autistic people are good at recognizing patterns, right? It's a very normal part of why little kids will line up their cars, line up their toys, just good at recognizing patterns. Some autistic people can recognize patterns in behaviors.
Oh, okay. So you're more people aware.
And we become studiers of behaviors. And I am very observant of behaviors.
Oh, interesting.
I always have been been trained to observe.
So the four of you
and my husband
and your husband,
my husband needs to get assessed, where that one we're pretty darn sure.
Okay. Wow. So all five of you probably are autistic in some form, but all differently.
Yes.
Right? Wow.
Yep.
It's such a handful. I sometimes wonder if autism will be split into different subcategories.
I think that too.
Because I think that too. It's hard for people to wrap their head around it because they're like, I thought autistic people couldn't look you in the eye and you're looking, it's like, okay, but that's one characteristic, but not everybody has that.
Yep, exactly. And, one of the things that rings in my brain for myself, I have had so many people over the course of my life tell me things like, I've never thought of it that way. I've never heard that. So it was like my brain definitely works differently. I get people looking at me like, wow, no, that's different than anybody's. Yeah.
Yes. Interesting. You can see how that can be valuable. That's something to be kind of excited about, right?
I think so.
That your brain, although I'm sure it makes life on the everyday kind of difficult sometimes, but your brain is unique and sees things differently. And maybe you'll be the one that will kind of discover something or help people see something in a new light? Or
yeah, that's kind of my thing that I do all the time. I had an interview for a job and I go into panic. Even though I'm good at peopling when it comes to job interviews, just my brain goes blank and I panic. But they had asked me a question about, is there ever been a time when there was a system in place that you had made better? You had changed it and made the system or whatever better. It was racking my brain. And I kind of came up with one tiny little thing and I didn't get that job. When I was talking to my best friend, who we've been friends since we were like 18. And she's like, everything in our whole life, you just see a better way to do it. She's like, everything you do, like our camp, you totally changed our check-in system. That's what my brain does that.
You don't even notice it because it's so normal to you.
I don't even notice it. Yeah, it's just who I am.
I read an article, or maybe it was a meme, about how the interview process, the employment process, is the worst. If you had to think of the worst possible thing to throw at autistic people, make them run through this gauntlet of interviewing strange people that you've never met before, getting dressed into clothing that they don't like to wear.
That's exactly right. And what do they tell you? Look people in the eye at an interview. That's what they say, shake hands. Oh my God, I got to touch somebody now too.
Yeah. But how many autistic people who are working in tech industries, for instance, are amazing, and, people need to hire them for real.
Right.
And
I think what you do is you have probably people higher up that are also neurodivergent.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be weird, which is one of the reasons why it took so long to get my oldest diagnosed.
Oh, okay.
I completely just understood him.
Okay. You didn't think he was weird at all. Okay.
I didn't. Everything he did made sense to me. So we're very much alike in how we present in a lot of ways. Our brains, we both are also ADHD. Our brains are constantly going. And I was like, I totally get him. I get it. So there's probably a lot of people in those industries where people on the spectrum are inclined to work that are probably, the more understanding. So there are different fields that it's, more people who get you. Yeah.
I suppose it helps when there are neurodiverse people on the hiring committee. If we could get them at the table or neurodiverse voices at the table, that would be helpful.
And so one of my big things about that meeting in the middle thing I was talking about is something called universal design.
I love universal design.
Right?
Yes.
So why can't we offer at every interview the questions up front?
Yeah.
Why can't we just some of these things that have become a societal norm, change them a little? It's not going to be bad for people who are neurotypical. Right. It's not going to make things harder for them.
Right. It's like the curve cutouts for wheelchairs. It doesn't hurt anybody. The stroller, people love it. Right. People with walkers love it, and joggers love it. And it helps everybody. Universal design is amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And there's a whole thing in education for universal design that is really being explored. And I'm super into it.
Awesome.
Wouldn't have to offer as many accommodations if it was just kind of already there.
I see. If the education curriculum itself was designed more inclusively. Interesting.
Yep.
Well, I'm sure there's a long ways to go, but it sounds like you're on the forefront of making things better for neurodivergent people in your life anyway. What advice would you give to parents who think they might have a kid with some sort of neurodiversity, ADHD or OCD or autism or anything like that, dyslexia? What should they be doing?
Well, they should really be doing what I think every parent should be doing. It's just getting to know your kid for who they are instead of what you imagined your kid would be. We have this idea of what it's going to be like. And some of us have a harder time letting go of those things and just embrace and get to know the kid.
Yeah.
Who they are.
Who they are, not who you wish they would be.
Just get, because I bet you they're awesome.
Yeah.
If you get to know them for who they are, the better you know them, the more you'll understand their needs.
Yeah.
And the understood.org has amazing, you could type in, does my son have ADHD? And come up and give you these things. Another thing, I swear, TikTok is just so educational. it's so many things like ADHD and autism. There's people sharing about what it's like in their daily life. You can watch these videos and be like, yeah, that's my kid.
Oh.
You know,
TikTok is like a perfect medium for people with ADHD and autism. They're quick, they're short, they're
yes,
off the cuff, they're a real.
Yeah, no waiting around for the good stuff. It's
boom.
They're all
right
compact.
there.
Yeah. You have to get your algorithm going. You got to skip through the ones that you don't want to see.
Yeah.
But just reaching out, Facebook pages. We didn't talk much about this. I know you talked about this with your neurodivergent rebel on the podcast about
lyric.
Lyric about ABA. I would steer clear of that.
Yeah, ABA. Can you tell us a little bit about ABA? What does it stand for and what is it?
Okay. It is, my brain just went blank.
Applied Behavior Analysis.
Yes. So it's really about addressing behaviors and making them look neurotypical. You're going to have a lot of people saying there's a new ABA and it's not really like that, but it's not as strict as it had been sometimes, but it's still not appropriate. What they're doing is trying to extinguish behaviors. You'll hear that a lot. Kids who are flapping, and without asking why they're doing the behavior, they're just looking at the behavior and saying, that's not normal.
And the flapping is people wave their arms or
their fingers wiggling in front of their eyes. These are called stims that are comforting and regulating for a lot of people on the spectrum.
Yeah. And so ABA is trying to take those away.
Yes.
So they don't look so strange
or
so they blend in better with neurotypical people.
Yes.
But people that don't like ABA, which I am one of those that does not like ABA, I think when people are stimming, they might be anxious or needing comfort for some reason. So maybe figure out what they need the comfort for. Yeah. Is that the idea?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, why are they doing that?
Yeah.
Why did the student just get up and run across the room?
Yeah.
Instead of don't run across the room.
Yeah. Let's get to the root of the
why. What's going on? A behaviorist with ABA will try to see the observable behavior, quote unquote. And I always say to people, I promise you, what you're observing is not going to give you much of a clue of what's going on in that autistic brain.
Yeah, it's just the tip of the iceberg, right?
That's just the tip of the iceberg. We got to do a lot more work than just observing the behavior. And you can do a lot of harm by trying to correct the behavior without knowing why.
Yeah.
Because the child grows up not being able to respond to their own cues.
Right, because they're shut down.
If this is uncomfortable, this is not safe. And they've been taught to ignore those cues. So very many people on the spectrum, especially women, end up being victims of abuse because they've been trained out of them to be able to recognize these signals that we have in our brain. This is not a safe situation. I should say, no, that's not comfortable for me. I should be able to tell people to stop. But it's been trained out of them. They've been told, no, you still have to sit still. You still have to look somebody in the eye. So all of their natural instincts have been trained out, and it's not safe.
Wow. That's not just a preferred method, or, it's not.
Agreed. Yeah. First of all, it's disrespectful to the child because they're a human being, but it's not just that. It's a safety issue to me.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I had not heard that before, but that totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing. I love your philosophy of treating each child as an individual and advocating for each child's rights to get an education and to be fully who they are. Does that kind of sum up your philosophy? 100%.
Yeah. Differences are a gift and should be embraced instead of just, you're different, I'm uncomfortable. How about you're different? I'd like to know more about you.
Yeah.
I'd like to learn and explore and have some different ideas maybe, or different experiences. And it's not scary. It's actually pretty awesome having those new experiences and learning about.
Absolutely. Yeah. I enjoy my students and my different people in my life that I've known that are on the spectrum, and they make my life definitely more interesting.
Yeah. It's a different way of looking at things what could be wrong about that? If we all saw things the same, we would not have advancements and change. Well,
I hope maybe in 20 years or so, people will be like, can you believe they used to try to make neurodivergent people not neurodivergent? Like, do you believe they were trying to get that out of us? And now it's celebrated. Now we're teaching other people how to do this,
That's my dream. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say that I haven't asked you about?
No, we just back on to, what to do for the kids. If you suspect, careful of any research that's trying to change your kid. What you want is somebody who is supportive, who listens. There are a lot of good Facebook pages out there. Look to adults, listen to the voices of the people who have those experiences. That's number one.
Yeah, they're trying to tell us.
Yeah. And the voices, especially now with internet, has been a huge boom for autistic voices.
Yeah.
This is a very preferred way.
Yeah. On Zoom, you mean?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Yeah.
Now, Autism Speaks is a really big autism organization that most people know about with the puzzle pieces.
Correct.
But Autism Speaks, that's an ableist name, first of all. And secondly, they're very much into ABA. Is that correct? Yeah.
They started out really as looking for a cure for autism.
Right.
That was how they really started. And then their advancement is moving into ABA. But it's not a respectful organization. I think they've put maybe somebody on their board now that's autistic, but it's just way too little too late. Yeah. And such a big organization. And, the puzzle piece is disrespectful. I'm not a puzzle for you to solve. I'm not a piece of something. I'm a whole person. Yeah. No more puzzle pieces.
Yeah, that's really problematic. I wanted to bring that up because a lot of people like, oh, okay, let's support autism,
Oh, I know. This is why it's so important to me, because this still is kind of an unknown aspect of autism, this way of looking at it as not trying to change people and just being respectful of someone's identity and not looking at it as like, oh, that's something that needs to be fixed.
Right. So maybe when people are looking at organizations, they should find the ones that are led by autistic people.
Yes. ASN is one of the main ones that's all autistic voices. ASN. I'm trying to see. My brain doesn't like anagrams today.
Autistic Self-Advocacy Network.
Yep, that's the one.
Okay.
Yep, Autistic Self-Advocacy Network.
That sounds like a good one.
Yes.
That sounds good. And I'll link in the episode we did with Lyric Holmans, who is the neurodivergent rebel. They're awesome. And they're a very big advocate for this kind of individuation that we're talking about. So
absolutely. There's lots of, I'll see if I could find some more of my resources out there. I know that there are some really good questions to ask.
Oh, okay.
To find out if your therapist is neurodiversity affirming.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes. So I'll see what I can find. I'll send that to you to put on the link. It's just a really great resource. Just ask them a couple of these questions and you'll be able to tell whether that provider is neurodiversity affirming or not.
Oh, good to know. Okay. I'll put that in the notes too. Well, Carolyn, it's been wonderful getting to know you. I forgot to mention at the beginning, I met you at the Cypress Pride Festival.
Yes.
So in addition to this work advocating for neurodiverse people, you also advocate for LGBTQ people. And it was not an easy fight to get that Pride/Diversity Festival at the city of Cypress. They were not super excited about it, but you pushed through with your friend Maria, and I spoke at that, and that's where I met you. So you are doing amazing things on many different fronts. So thank you for all of the work you're doing.
Yeah. That's another one of those autistic traits, a high sense of justice.
Oh,
yes. So, and just that you see sometimes not okay, and you just got to do something about it.
And many LGBTQ people are also neurodiverse.
Absolutely. Yes. Try to be careful about it. Trans people, that's very common in neurodiversity. The thinking is that just their brain works different. They don't see gender the same way as other people do. So trans and non-binary are very common in neuro, but they're cautioning people about that because they're afraid they won't get their trans affirming care if they have a diagnosis. They'll think, oh, that's your autism, and discount people.
Oh, shoot.
I know, right?
That's complicated.
I know.
Dang it.
So the society trying to put everybody in their boxes.
Yeah, let's get rid of the boxes altogether.
Absolutely. Agreed. Let's just be us.
Well, we are definitely allies, and I look forward to collaborating with you further. You're right close to me geographically, so we'll be, I'm sure, communicating and collaborating on future projects together. So thank you.
Sounds great. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very, very welcome. If people wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
I am on Facebook. I also have an Instagram account that my husband and I run. That's where we do a lot of our advocacy stuff.
Okay.
So I'm been trying to pick that back up again.
Okay.
I have the neurodivergent Cypress group that I would love to hang out with them. So any of those things, reach out and I'll find you.
Okay. I'll put all those links in the notes. And thank you everyone for listening to this episode. Please share it with anyone you know who might have a child with neurodiversity or who knows that they do, or maybe the person themselves has neurodiversity. And find Safe Home Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And we also have a Patreon account if you would like to support us with a donation of $5, $10, $25, or $50 a month. That helps us remain commercial free. And you can get into our book club and our adoptive parent support group. So come check us out there, patreon.com/safehome. So thank you very much again for being with us, Carolyn. I really appreciate everything you shared. And everybody who's listening, Carolyn and I want you to
stay safe.